success is no longer measured only by quarterly earnings, but by long-term impact and contributions. It's a very good question because unlike what most people think, reducing climate impact actually begins with a mindset shift. And I think that the greatest challenge is not necessarily technological, it's cultural. I think that organizations must first recognize that climate action is an ongoing activity. It has to become part of your DNA in the company. And it's not just part of the corporate social responsibility. For organizations to actually reduce their climate impact, I think that they have to first and foremost recognize that it has to make economic and business sense. It has to become an issue that is closely related to remaining competitive. It's about risk management, it's about reputation, it's about credibility, it's about remaining extremely competitive in a always changing business environment. So I think that the journey, just to conclude, the journey starts with measuring and understanding your own carbon footprint, setting targets, if you will. And I say setting targets because you have to understand that only that which is measurable can actually be improved. So you have to understand your base, you have to understand where you want to be, and then go through that transition within the company, optimizing energy efficiency or trying to reduce cost, by the way, not just reduce your carbon footprint, but reduce your cost, become more efficient. And therefore, if you can, once you start doing that, you start looking for niches, new business opportunities, new ways to sell, and appeal to your potential customer base. So in a nutshell, this has to become an issue that is central to the leadership of the company, and an absolute priority, understanding that if you do reduce your climate impact, you will also become more competitive and more efficient. For decades, business leaders and top executives, unfortunately, viewed sustainability as an afterthought, as something that it was nice to do. They understood that as an ethical or moral decision they had to make. Even a lot of them saw it as social corporate responsibility or philanthropy. That perception is now obsolete because the data is actually undeniably clear. Companies that lead in ESG performance and companies that understand sustainability as a comparative advantage tend to outperform their peers when it comes to profitability, when it comes to market valuation, when it comes to employee engagement, when it comes to ability to get better financing terms, or even when it comes to identifying new business opportunities going forward. So I think that my message, at least from that perspective, the message to me is that sustainability does drive profit because it makes economic sense. It's not about ideology. It's not about doing the right thing. It's about strategy. It's about remaining competitive. And ultimately, as I mentioned, the data is overwhelmingly clear. Companies that understand that they are betting on sustainability also understand that this is about capturing market share. It's about attracting talent and retaining talent. And ultimately, it's about building trust with their shareholders, stakeholders, customer base, and employees. don't think I'm exaggerating when I say that we are currently living through one of the greatest economic transformations in human history. This green climate revolution, just as the Industrial Revolution reshaped society and reshaped world economic order, this new era is also redefining how value is created, how value is measured, and how value is sustained. So this transformation, in my opinion, demands that business align profit with purpose. They need to replace the old way of thinking, which was based on extractive models, and transition to a different way of understanding our economic model, which has to be more based on circular economy, on moving from linear take, make, dispose systems to regeneration, social capital, and understanding that this new economic model, it's not just the right thing to do, but it also makes economic sense. So I think it's about a complete new paradigm, where companies actually understand that success is no longer measured only by quarterly earnings, but by long-term impact and contributions to collective well-being. It's a new way of understanding companies. So as long as companies understand that this climate revolution is not a threat, it's actually an opportunity. I would actually argue it's an opportunity of a generation. It's driving innovation in clean energy, mobility, better finances, digital technologies. It allows you to bring innovation into the company, generate greater efficiency. And so the winners, I think, are going to be those that are able to adapt the fastest, those who are able to incorporate sustainability into their DNA, if you will. And so it's about attracting talent. It's about positioning themselves as trusted companies, as trusted leaders in this green transition would make a difference. So the message is, I think, a message of optimism. The future belongs to the companies that help build it. And the future is going to be greener. I am absolutely convinced that we will live in a low emissions economy. It makes sense. The arrival of Donald Trump to the White House has made a difference in the United States in terms of the speed at which the green transition was actually taking place. There's no doubt about it. However, I remain extremely optimistic about the direction of the United States when it comes to this green revolution or green transition for a number of reasons. Number one, because the transition to a low emissions economy in the United States is actually being led by the private sector and not the public sector, right? When you see which are the companies that are investing the most around the world, they're all, or mostly, when you look at the top 10 companies, 6 of them are American multinationals, from Google to Meta to Amazon and so on. So companies realize that it makes economic sense for them to be green, to reduce costs, to give clients and customers what they want and what they expect, to give them sustainable solutions, because that's what the market wants, right? So again, this revolution in the United States is being led by the private sector. Two, because when you actually look at the political landscape in the United States, President Biden invested the largest amount of public funds in the history of the United States over the course of his 4-year presidency. It was called the IRA, the Inflation Reduction Act, which was basically an excuse for the United States to transition to a low emissions green economy. When you look at the numbers, it's actually quite surprising to see that approximately 62% of the green jobs that are going to be generated in the United States in the next 10 years will be generated in Republican states. And almost 70% of the grants and federal subsidies to the states will be given to Republican states. So it's going to be very difficult for Donald Trump to go to his own Republican governors and say, hey, you know what, give me the money back or the commitment that the federal government made. He'll probably choose a path of less resistance. And so I think that's something important, because politically speaking, it's not going to be that easy. Now, having said that, the government is not going to invest a single additional penny in the next 3 years. Let's be clear. Finally, I'm very optimistic because there is a huge social demand in the United States. According to the last CNN poll, 72% of American citizens want the federal government to actually do more to combat climate change. More, not less, right? So most people, regardless of where they live in the United States, want the United States to do more and to lead the way. All of that together leads me to the conclusion that this transition is an issue of speed, but not direction. The world will be a low emissions world, and our economy, because of that, will be a more competitive green economy. I love speaking to audiences because I am absolutely certain that these are not just disruptive times in history where everything is changing and nothing will ever be the same. I want people to walk away with a sense of possibility and empowerment. I wanted to see sustainability not as a limitation, not as a regulatory imposition or something they have got to do because the government says they have to do. I want them to understand that this is the greatest economic and business opportunity of our time, which is also the right thing to do from a moral and ethical standpoint. When I speak to audiences, my goal is to actually connect reason with emotion, to show that this shift towards a low carbon economy is not only necessary, but it's also exciting, it's also profitable, it makes you more competitive. I want every business leader, every employee, and every person within a company to understand that whether they lead a business, a classroom, or a community group, that they do have agency. That change begins with your choices, your voice, and your leadership. I think the future is not something that happens to us. It's something that we build together, one decision, one innovation, but also one courageous act at a time. So I want to make sure that they understand that this is a historic moment and that it's up to us to make a difference.